Oh, I'm doing this as a suggestion for one of my buddies. This one is for you. This is something else completely different than what I just reviewed right here. This is City of God, based on a true story, actually a book. Celebrated with worldwide acclaim, this powerful true story of crime and redemption has won numerous prestigious awards around the globe. The streets of the world's most notorious slum, Rio De Janeiro's City of God, are a place where combat photographers fear to tread. Police rarely go, and residents are lucky if they live to the age of 20. In the midst of oppressive crime and violence, a frail and scared young boy will grow up to discover that he can view the harsh realities of his surroundings with a different eye, the eye of an artist. In the face of impossible odds, his brave ambition to become a professional photographer becomes a window to his world and ultimately his way out. 2 thumbs up, Ebert and Roper. 4 stars as Rolling Stone, Chicago Times, and the New York Post. And yeah, 15 miles from paradise, one man will do anything to tell the world everything. This is a freaking phenomenal movie. It's just absolutely glorious in every sense of the word. I mean, it's an epic, to be sure, but it's also brutal, but at the same time hopeful and redemptive. Let's see where it's like, yeah, with cocaine, it's like this movie takes place over 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and we get to see this kind of small time, intense crime going on. We get to see the escalation of how we get Lil Dice, who's now Lil Z, begin his own empire and pretty much getting rid of all the enemies who were causing just everyday citizens, the innocent people who were not involved with this, trying to live their life and taking care of the people who were eliminating those not involved. And finally, in the 1980s, when we get the runts, who I guess you'd call the extreme little rascals, and just the amount of violence and with all the firearms and everything. I mean, this movie is just incredible. I guess it's like it really does reach for the stars, and it really does reach for the stars and goes beyond that, plus ultra, of just showing that how insane and intense just living there was. Everyone has a firearm. Kids have a firearm. It's like robbing. What was it? Yeah, robbing gas like trucks that are transporting like gas tanks and everything else. I mean, this is just a brutal life that was there in the 60s, and it's just like this is, there were also some African American folks who were living in there, and of course they faced prejudice against the Brazilians as well, just because it was just a different ethnicity, and it was just, you look at it and you're just like, this is just so freaky and intense. Not freaky, just so intense, just the prejudice and racism going on, and the rampant cocaine use that kids were using. I was like following this tender trio of how they're thinking that they're, that they think that they're the leaders and stuff like that. And ultimately, one of them grows up, and the little brother, Rocket, starts to envision a different way of escaping this hell. And at the same time, it's like, during a robbery with a tender trio, and the little guy, Lil Dice, things just go south, especially when the police get involved during the robbery at the the Motel Miami, which was kind of funny, and just sex and everything else, just robbing, not killing, just robbing. And we just get to see his ascension, just kind of just eliminating all the crud going on. Saves a couple of people because they were friends, like this guy named Benny, this guy named Carrot, who doesn't have red hair or anything like that, says the guy with red hair. And ultimately it just leads to what the city feels like it's safer, but then comes in this little this next group called the Runts, who are just there in the background, but because they're like the next generation or whatever. It's just, ooh, you know. So it goes from like this scale of like how everything's still connected, like in the slums and everything else, and then the empire expands. And there's an intense scene of like where someone gets shot over at a party or something like that. And they brought together all the soul people, all the people going to church, and Sama people, and you know, it's like, yeah, this movie is just kind of pumping the brakes a little break, because when it gets up at the intensity, when this guy named Knockout Ned comes, where they said like, was that one shot from him is like 10 shots from little Z's gang or Zai's gang or whatever, just to show the intensity and everything else. But then again, our hero at the same time is just witnesses everything. You know, he's narrating and describing everything. Eventually gets a job with a Brazilian newspaper, so he managed to escape the wrath of a lot of people whose fate would otherwise befall them in a violent way. So you gotta say that, but ultimately I think with him, it just adds to the intensity. He adds more realism and kind of like a safe way. It's like, hey, it's like, for me, I'm doing pretty good, but there's also like a running joke that he's still a virgin. But ultimately, he does meet this nice looking woman, and first night, and then that's how he loses his V card. That's how his virginity is revoked, and you know, he's like just trying to survive it. Ultimately, you know, he does get things going good, but there's also the danger that his pictures could be, because he snapped pictures of Lil Zai's gang, like posing, holding the guns and everything, and saying, "Hey, get these developed. How much is it?" And you know, gives them that, but there's the danger that they could eliminate him because some person at the printing press displayed and published all the pictures of the gang holding the guns and everything, and well, it's just reveals like, now we just found ourselves to be more famous than Knockout Ned, so he actually did something good. And yeah, I mean, what can I say with all the scenes and everything? It's just, then ultimately the cycle of violence is constantly perpetuated by our by the runts who eliminate the previous generation of drug dealers, cocaine and marijuana specifically, if anyone's curious. And it's just impactful. It's harsh. It's harsh, but it's also a movie you really should see. There's a catch though. It's in Portuguese, since that's spoken down in Brazil. So, you know, it's just like, it's beautifully shot. A lot of quick edits and everything. This is again to capture the frenetic nature of everything. I mean, there's even James Brown's "Get On Up," which, you know, at least all the cultures that are coming together, because it's a lot more peaceful. But in the end, though, it like, no matter, like, it's just going to keep continuing unless, and I don't know, it's just like, that's why we just have novels and films, just to show what's going on down here and what changes that we can make for discussion and things like that. Ultimately, the actor who played Rocket was appearing in a John Legend video, but then it was found out that in 2024 he was doing some Uber driving, which led to the question of like, what was that equality for getting roles in films in Brazil or something like that, and I was very surprised by that. So, I mean, yeah, this movie's intense, and at 2 hours and 10 minutes, it's like, just, she's a peach, you know. It's movies in Portuguese, and it's just, it also comes with special features. News from a Personal War documentary. There's also a line about when our protagonist is having at the lady's house before he loses his virginity, saying like, "Do you take a hot bath or shower?" He's like, "No, I've never taken a hot bath or shower." It's like, what do you use instead? we warm a tea kettle. And right before that, one of the gangs are going out to commit some stuff. They have a group prayer, and they asked, "Hey, does this really happen?" They said, "Just go ahead and film the dang thing." So it just adds to the realism of it. How much of this is real? Probably about the rise of the drugs and stuff like that. I don't know about the how much violence there is. Maybe that's just done for dramatic effect. I don't know. But yeah, truly, highly recommend that you watch City of God.